It took place in a little beautiful, picturesque town, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Lee had just won a major victory that threatened the entirety of the Union. The Union was hanging by a thread. And because Lee had the momentum, he said, we're going to invade the North. His goal, to take Washington, D.C. If I can take Washington, we'll win. We can sue for peace. And there will be no more United States, but each state will become an independent government of their own, which would have been doomed. Lincoln knew that if something didn't happen soon, that all was lost. He called his generals in and he said, meet them, find them, do not let them get to Washington. And that fateful morning when Union cavalry spotters ran into the first advance of Confederate forces, and the battle began. The Union forces were stretched out over several miles. They had a very advantageous position. The end of their troop line ended at a place called Big Round Top. Across from them was the Confederate forces arrayed across Seminary Ridge. What the Union did not know was that the Confederate forces extended about 1.5 miles further past their lines. They couldn't see them correctly. They thought they were matched up equally. And by the Confederate forces being 1.5 miles longer, they realized the back door was open for the Confederate forces to flank them and get behind them. General Meade and General Warren, on this day, in the early morning hours, rode their horses to the top of Big Round Top. They were confident, we've got the advantage. We can see further. But off into the distance, in a place where there should not have been troops, they heard a couple of musket shots. And Meade told Warren, go check that out. Warren had graduated second in his class at West Point in engineering and was considered at that moment the premier engineer in all the Union Army. Topography was his specialty. His ride took him to a place called Little Round Top, a little ridge next to Big Round Top that was not fortified by the Union Army. He got there and he scanned the horizon and he couldn't see anything, but something in his spirit said, I don't feel right. And he sent a rider to the artillery, and he told them to turn their guns and to fire 2 salvos in an area that looked empty, far off in the distance, to the left of Little Round Top. No troops are there. That's what they thought. 2 salvos fired and exploded. The sun was shining in the perfect way, and through his binoculars, all of a sudden, lo and behold, he began to see flashes of light as men jumped up, and he began to see rifles, barrels glinting off the sun. He began to see reflections of the sun off of sabers. And lo and behold, he saw thousands of troops beginning to stir, and he realized, we're exposed. We're naked. This is a perfect textbook flanking maneuver. Unbeknownst to him, at that moment, the orders had been given to Colonel Oakes of the 5th Alabama Regiment to take the 5th and the 10th Alabama and to do a flanking action and come behind the Union soldiers, coming up through the coverage of hills and trees and boulders where there were no troops, use Little Round Top to get behind the Union Army at Big Round Top and cut them in two. They had already left. They were on the far left coming and beginning their infiltration. General Warren saw the danger. He grabbed the first rider he saw. He said, "Get me some troops. I don't care who they are. Get me some troops now." And he came across a colonel. His name was Colonel Strong Vincent, born in Pennsylvania. He said, "Colonel Vincent, General Warren says, get your men right now to Little Round Top." He immediately broke camp, got his men there. And the general explained to him, "We've got no time. You're the only men we have. You must hold Little Round Top. They're going to flank us. And you are all that's standing between the Confederates and Washington, D.C." Undermanned, no water, no food. Broke camp that quick. He lined his men out, spread them out as much as he could. He no sooner got them in place than out of the thicket charged the 5th Alabama. Caught them almost by surprise. Screaming that bloodthirsty rebel yell, the Union men began to fall right and left. Vincent jumped down off his horse and, imperious to the onslaught of bullets, ran into the front lines and began to pick men up. "Pick up your rifle, pick up your rifle, pick up your rifle." And began to march back and forth as bullets whipped up all around him. "Hold the line, hold the line." He began to tell the wounded, "If you can hold a rifle, hold the line." And all of a sudden, 2 or 3 hours into the battle, the heat beating down, 3 attacks. They had repelled 3 more. His aide said, "Colonel, we're going to have to pull back. We got too many wounded. I don't think we can hold the line." He said, "We will not leave. We'll hold the line."